I am Katarina Mentzelopoulos, and I have co-authored 2 volumes with Multilingual Matters called Lessons from Exceptional Language Learners Who Have Achieved Native-like Proficiency and Stories from Exceptional Language Learners Who Have Achieved Native-like Proficiency. So these 2 books are a duology because essentially what we have done is me and my co-author Zoltan Dornier have interviewed 30 exceptional language learners who have achieved native-like proficiency, and we asked them about their life stories, their language learning life story. So how did they achieve such a level when very few people can, statistically speaking? And so we kind of followed them throughout their trajectories to see what sort of aspects, cognitive, motivational, developmental aspects affected them throughout their trajectories and brought them to the place that they are today. And so Stories is the storybook companion where we actually document each of the stories and we take you through every one of those 30 learners' autobiographies, and you can learn about all the different idiosyncrasies, whereas Lessons is the more analytical volume, which goes into the different factors that we think may have affected our participants across the whole cohort of 30. So one of the biggest questions we've had is, why would we want to interview native-like people? I think historically the idea of the native speaker has been used and continues to be used really poorly as a means of discrimination, but I think we like to think of it instead as native-likeness represents one language learning goal. It isn't the only language learning goal, and it certainly isn't an appropriate language learning goal for the majority of people. I mean, there's been so many studies to show that achieving native likeness is statistically very unlikely for most ordinary language learners. But we like to think of native likeness instead as similar to Mount Everest, in that not everyone needs to climb Mount Everest. If you're a mountaineer, you grow up thinking about Mount Everest as this incredible feat of human ability. And so a lot of people are inspired to climb Mount Everest because of that. And so in that way, native likeness is like Mount Everest. You hear about these crazy stories of people who can pass for a native speaker, even though it's their second or third or fifth language. But at the same time, I think that there are a lot of completely legitimate and incredibly skilled and talented mountaineers who have never climbed Mount Everest, who have no intentions of climbing Mount Everest. So in that way, native likeness represents a goal that some people have, and in fact that a lot of people have, that a lot of people may not achieve, but that is still an inspiring goal to have. And so for the people who have achieved it, our question was, how did they manage to do that? And I think also as a research goal, for us it was important to kind of draw back the curtain on how far can humanity go. Not everyone has that same ability, not everyone has those same resources, especially time even, and so when given the optimal circumstances, how do people achieve native likeness? So the 2 books, Stories I really recommend for learners especially, as well as teachers. I've had a couple of people come back to me and tell me how they have used them in their classes. So what's been a fun activity is going through someone's story and maybe talking to learners about what might be helpful for them or what might not be helpful for them. And even going into some of the pitfalls, some of the problems that we might encounter as learners, and how these exceptional learners have overcome them and how we might be able to overcome them. I've also had people come back to me saying they've been using them when they're teaching pre-service teachers, kind of following the same things, and also looking at the different approaches that learners might take to language learning and seeing how they might be able to apply that in their classrooms, or for how their students might be able to apply that in their language learning lives. And then the other book, Lessons, is more of the analytical companion. So we've had a lot of people ask us, okay, well, you've interviewed these native-like learners now, well, what's the key to success? What's the key to language learning to a native-like proficiency? And so that one kind of takes a broader umbrella perspective of what kinds of factors did a lot of participants have in common? What did they not have in common? Where did they converge and diverge? And so that one I recommend for researchers, but we did try to make both books as accessible to read as possible. And so I think that anyone from language learners to teachers to researchers to enthusiasts, anyone could probably read these and get something out of it. So, and then of course I'm always happy to talk about them. So you can find me on Twitter at Katarina Mentz, and I hope everyone enjoys the books as much as we enjoyed conducting the interviews and writing them. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more books from Multilingual Matters.